Everybody knows about the American Civil War. North versus South. Anti-slavery versus pro-slavery. The Union versus the Confederacy. But how many people know about the causes of the Civil War? Everything that happens has an impact on the future, large or small. Today, we will be diving into some people, events, and places that impacted the build-up to the American Civil War. This is Causes of the Civil War. We start our journey at a small log cabin on Sinking Spring Farm near Hodgenville, Kentucky. The day is February 12, 1809. Nancy Hanks Lincoln just gave birth to a child. I've heard rumors this baby began giving speeches that day, but those are just rumors. This baby's name was Abraham Lincoln. Abe would spend most of his childhood here. Lincoln, who actually often requested to be referred to by his surname, had many jobs as he grew up. This included an Illinois captain in the Black Hawk War. He then served 4 terms as an Illinois representative in the House of Representatives for Sangamon. He was part of the Whig Party at the time. After this, he became a lawyer. He then ran for the Republican Party candidate for the United States Senate from Illinois. Although he lost this election, he became widely recognized for his ability to give impeccable speeches. He was so good, he could convince you hated your favorite food. At least I hope so, because I really got to lay off on the ice cream. His speeches were passionate, fun, and funny. He was known to reference the Constitution to support his points. He also often openly spoke out against slavery, saying it was immoral. The picture on the right is of Lincoln when he was young. No, it's not just you. The only difference is the beard. Lincoln won the presidential election by an electoral college landslide. In many southern states, his name wasn't even on the ballots. Nothing could stop him, especially with that new beard. Abraham Lincoln became the 16th U.S. president. Due to his victory in the election, states in the South felt threatened. They thought that he would attempt to take away slavery, even though Lincoln made it very clear he would not. The Southerners would not listen to him, and so the secession began. One after another, states seceded from the United States of America. These states formed the Confederate States of America. President Lincoln had his entire term occupied by the Civil War. During the war, Lincoln passed the 13th Amendment, abolishing slavery. Once the war finally ended, Lincoln could take a sigh of relief. Unfortunately, this sigh would be his last breath. A man named John Wilkes Booth assassinated Lincoln by shooting him point blank in the back of the head. This is seen in the photo in the middle. Abraham Lincoln became the first American president to be assassinated. However, Lincoln was not the only person who played a major role in the build-up to the Civil War. A man named John Brown had a major impact on starting the Civil War. John was a white abolitionist, but he didn't just want slavery to end. He was ready to fight to end slavery and to die to end slavery. He believed that slavery could not be ended peacefully and required violence. He was one of the most radical abolitionists. But let's rewind a bit. John Brown was born on the 9th of May in 1800. He was born in Torrington, Connecticut. Throughout his life, Brown had many jobs. He was a jack of all trades, or I guess you could say, a John of all trades. John worked on the Underground Railroad. He was also a hide seller, a sheep farmer, and a passionate abolitionist. Along with his many jobs throughout his life, he also had 30 kids. After John heard about the sacking of Lawrence and the caning of Charles Sumner, which he heard about both on the same day, he decided to take action. He, along with 2 of his sons and a couple of other men, snuck around killing some of the pro-slavery border ruffians who participated in the sacking of Lawrence. This incident would later be called the Pottawatomie Creek Massacre. After this, John Brown decided to attempt the riskiest thing an abolitionist had done yet. He planned to capture the arsenal at Harper's Ferry hand the weapons out to slaves, and spark a large-scale slave rebellion. This plan was not favored by many. One person, especially, who was against it was Frederick Douglass, who told Brown personally to call it off. John decided it must be done. This plan failed, and John and the other raiders were pinned down in the arsenal by locals firing their own weapons. Then the Marines arrived, led by Robert E. Lee. Two of John's sons were mortally injured. Both died of their injuries. Many other raiders were killed during the raid or captured and hanged. Among those hanged was John Brown himself. John was a large reason the Civil War occurred because he really showed many abolitionists that to truly end slavery, violence might be necessary. But there were many other causes of the Civil War, and this isn't limited to people. There were plenty of events that caused the Civil War. One of these included the Battle of Fort Sumter. Now, this is a bit more complicated. The Battle of Fort Sumter is considered the start of the Civil War. So although it isn't exactly leading up to the Civil War, it is definitely a cause of the war. Fort Sumter was a fort on a small man-made island in South Carolina. You can see in the top left image. It was occupied by American soldiers. When South Carolina seceded, they believed that the fort was theirs. They demanded the American soldiers leave. They refused. So the Confederates fired their cannons at the fort. Look at the bottom left image. This was the attack from the Confederates' point of view. The soldiers in the fort had a major problem. They were low on everything. Troops, ammunition, gunpowder, small arms, food, and water. The Confederates greatly outnumbered and outgunned the Union soldiers. Lincoln needed to supply the fort with more resources. But he didn't want this to seem like an attack. You see, Lincoln was still holding out hope for avoiding a war and getting the states to rejoin the Union peacefully. So he sent a ship with only food and water to supply to the fort. However, the Confederates fired upon the ship, forcing the ship to turn around and leave. This battle lasted about 34 hours, ending when the soldiers in the fort surrendered. Shockingly, there were no casualties during the battle. However, while surrendering, a gun exploded, killing 2 Union soldiers. The Confederates captured the fort, marking the end of the first battle in the American Civil War. Another military conflict that caused the Civil War was the Mexican-American War. The Mexican-American War began on April 25, 1846. After the Texas Revolution, Texas joined the U.S. Mexico attempted to purchase the disputed territory, and the U.S. sent 80 troops into the disputed territory. Mexico saw this as an attack, so they fired upon them. America had many great generals at the time, including Zachary Taylor and Winfield Scott. I guess Winfield's parents named him well, since he would go on to win many battles on the field. Alright, I'll stop. The president at the time was James K. Polk. Along with the Americans, it was the new California Republic. The war ended in an American victory on February 12, 1848. Land that was freed from Mexico is modern-day Oklahoma, Arizona, California, New Mexico, and part of Texas. After the war, California wanted to join the U.S. But there was an issue. The Missouri Compromise line went straight through the middle of California. So how do you decide if California is a free state or a slave state? This was a question that sparked more issues in the U.S., leading to the outbreak of the Civil War. Speaking of California, during the Mexican-American War, California declared itself its own nation, called the New Republic. The flag can be seen in the image on the left. After assisting America in the war, California decided it wanted to join the U.S. Sure, Let's just check if you're above or below the line. Oh. What now? The line determined in the Missouri Compromise runs straight through the middle of California. This caused a lot of issues with how to decide whether it would become a free state or a slave state. Also, while this was going on, gold was found at Sutter's Mill in Coloma, California, by James W. Marshall on January 24, 1848. This caused a large influx of settlers from around the world, especially in 1849. These settlers were called the 49ers. Now, that name sounds familiar. Oh yeah, the San Francisco 49ers, the football team. Well, this is where the name came from. The issue deciding on if it should be a slave state or a free state was resolved with the new compromise, the Compromise of 1850. This compromise allowed California to enter as a free state, but a lot of pro-slavery laws were enforced in the U.S. to balance it out, such as the Fugitive Slave Act. These laws enraged Northerners, pushing the country closer to the Civil War. Today, we discussed what pushed the country ever closer to the Civil War. For the next episode, we will be looking into the Civil War itself, so stay tuned for that. Until then, stay curious, thank you for listening, and have a fine rest of your day.